Hello and welcome to the Waite of the Law podcast. We're back again, and this week we are talking about something that is not always associated with family law and family lawyers: wealth preservation. I think most people associate coming to see a lawyer with having to part with your money and arguing about money or arguing about children, but actually we do other things to try and help people to avoid that happening in the future with regard to the financial side of things.
Yes, but also to, if there is going to be a separation in the future, to hopefully make that process less painful emotionally and financially by planning ahead. It's never a nice conversation, but by having a prenuptial agreement.
Yeah. I think there are some statistics which I can't quote right now because I can't remember off the top of my head, but which show that couples who do actually have these conversations before they get married about prenuptial agreements are actually more likely to have a long and happy marriage, because everything, again, it comes down to communication and everything's out in the open. There's no nasty surprises. Everybody knows where they stand.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. And I know we spoke in a previous episode about people going into marriages not realising the legal consequences of divorce, and clients who come to you shocked when you say you're going to have to share your pension with your soon-to-be ex-spouse, because they genuinely have no idea that is part of the law in our country. And whilst prenuptial agreement isn't always the nicest
conversation
item on the wedding planning list, I think you're right that having those conversations at the outset and educating people about the approach that the court will take. I mean, obviously you can only speak to what the law is at the time that they're getting married, but focusing people's minds on, if you get divorced, will your ex-husband, ex-wife be able to afford to buy a property? What if you have children? Things like that. And often it is they are coming to us because of a wealth preservation priority. And I don't know about you, but I have a lot of prenuptial agreement clients where it isn't so much the bride and groom,
it's the parents
of who perhaps, as part of their own inheritance tax planning or gifting to their children, have made significant financial gifts to their children, often to purchase a property, and understandably
don't want that to pass outside of the family if anything goes wrong.
So definitely a prenuptial agreement is worth considering.
Prenuptial agreements are something that, when there is a particular asset that somebody feels they don't want to pass outside of their family, or that is not a matrimonial asset, that's where they come into play.
Yeah, or they know that one is going to be coming
in the near future.
There's going to be a gift or an inheritance received during the marriage that they might not receive unless they've made it clear that will stay with them in the event of a divorce. And again, it's all about having those conversations up front, because chances are that gift will come and the family, the couple, will benefit from it. But then what happens 10 years down the line if they separate and one party is saying, well, no, obviously that's come from my side of the family, and the other party is not in agreement, which often at the time of
case.
What you might agree on when you're planning a wedding isn't necessarily what you agree on when you're planning a divorce. But I think it's definitely becoming more common, I would say.
Definitely. I think in the last few years, the amount of prenuptial agreements that we're instructed to prepare has increased.
And the law has changed.
They're much more persuasive.
When I qualified, it was, if a client came to me and said, oh, we had a prenuptial agreement, it would be a factor that you might, depending on who you acted for, that you might try and place weight on or try and ignore. Whereas now it's completely flipped, and as long as it's been properly drafted and signed sufficient time before the wedding, financial disclosure is obviously an important one to make sure that everybody knows what's what before signing up.
And you've both had legal advice.
And legal advice.
The big
And the biggest factor is that it isn't unfair. That's always a difficult conversation to have. I mean, sometimes you can see quite clearly it is unfair.
Yeah.
Whereas other times it might not be unfair now,
but it could be.
But it could be unfair in
10
years' time when you've got 3 children.
But I think even in those circumstances, it would still give you some protection because obviously the starting point for the division of capital on divorce is 50-50, and if you've got a prenuptial agreement, even if the court don't in the future uphold the terms of the prenuptial agreement,
the fact of it is going to be relevant.
It's going to, the fact that you've had that intention between you and that you've signed up to it. I think what we do find sometimes, not so much recently, but is the call 3 weeks before the wedding, where somebody says, I'm getting married 3 weeks, I need a prenup. But
also they're often, I find, the cases where the financially stronger party will be saying, I just need a prenup that says if we get divorced, he leaves with nothing.
Yeah.
Which isn't going to be fair anyway. But I think it's the fairness question is one that changes throughout the marriage, and that's why we will advise clients to keep the prenuptial agreement under review, enter into a separate postnup if something changes, so one of them loses their job or has a health issue or they have children, or they move home or whatever. Life will throw lots of different things at people, and as a result, people's needs change, their resources change, and the benefit of a prenuptial agreement is that it is an agreement and it's bespoke to that couple, and they can vary it by agreement as many times as they want to throughout the marriage.
Yeah, but I think sometimes it's quite difficult. So people come to you with the idea that they want a prenuptial agreement, but I don't think they always understand quite, not the people who come even 3 weeks before, but it's even the people who come months before, and they will say, I want a prenuptial agreement. But when you start actually getting down to, right, well, we need this and we need to do this, I think they're always a bit surprised. And then obviously, if you're planning for a wedding, you've got lots of costs, lots of outlays. The last thing you want is to be spending thousands of pounds on a prenuptial agreement on top of all of that. But I always say to clients, it's like an insurance policy that you would pay for monthly, but you're paying for it up front. You're paying up front, because if you don't have this, you're going to spend, if anything does go wrong, and hopefully it won't, but if it does, you're going to spend considerably more arguing about it and potentially lose a lot more.
Yeah, that's true.
But it's getting that financial disclosure, making sure that the schedules, because we would normally attach schedules of what each party's got, and trying to sign it more than 4 weeks before the wedding.
But it is, and I'm sure you've done the same, that if they do, sometimes even you may have been working on it for months and months.
I think that's less of an issue.
It isn't necessarily a door of the church job.
Yeah.
But it just happens to be that that's when you eventually agree it and everybody signs it. But you can always then have a postnuptial agreement that says, yes, we are now married. We do still want to be kept to the terms of the prenup, even though we signed it the day before the wedding.
And we will say to clients, won't we, if it's really close to the wedding date, then it's sensible to have a postnuptial agreement. Yeah. And I think also the postnuptial agreement is obviously an agreement signed after the nuptials. But if there's a blip during the marriage, that's another reason why people might come to us about a postnuptial agreement. So say things aren't going very well, but they decide they're going to, reconcile or give things another go, then they might want a postnuptial agreement in those circumstances.
Yeah. Or if during the marriage, one party comes to learn that they are going to inherit or receive a gift from parents or other relatives, that, and often coupled with things might not be going particularly well, they want to stay in the marriage and try and save the marriage, but equally they're conscious that a lump sum is incoming and might need to be protected. But again, always a difficult conversation to have. But it isn't always married couples. Unmarried couples as well.
Yeah. More and more unmarried couples.
Absolutely. And I think in some respects it's even more important for unmarried couples to properly document their intentions, when they start to live together, because the law for unmarried couples is so
well, there's far less protection.
Unsatisfactory.
Yeah, we talked about the common law spouse myth, and I think in other countries like Australia, I think if you live together for a couple of years, you get certain protections. There isn't that here, and what a court will look at if there's a breakdown in that relationship, when there's property involved, they'll look at the intention of the parties. So if you've got a document that sets out very clearly,
because again, when you're separating, what you recall to be your intentions from 20 years ago, or the other person's intentions, might be quite different to their recollection. So it is important, and again, it's often a case where parents will have gifted money or loaned money to an adult child to purchase a property. They then want to move in with their partner, and understandably, the parents want to make sure that gift and that element of the equity is properly protected.
Yeah, I think I would say that cohabitation agreements are one of those things that I would shout from the rooftops about, because when we have the clients that come in, they haven't got a cohabitation agreement, haven't got anything in writing, just an expectation that because they've been together and they've got children, this is what's going to happen. And
they can often be quite complicated financial contributions to the purchase or to the improvement of property.
Yeah.
So one person might have paid more of the deposit or the entirety of the deposit. The other person might have paid the mortgage. One of them has paid to put on an extension, whereas the other one has done something. And it's just unravelling that in the way that the court would for an unmarried couple can be really, really complicated. Whereas for a married couple, it's all slightly more vague because it doesn't really matter who paid
contributions
what. You aren't going back in the same way that you are for an unmarried couple. So it is important to have a cohabitation agreement or a declaration of trust, or ideally both, so that the intention and the agreement is properly documented.
And because it will save you an absolute
fortune.
God, yeah. Because all that delving into the past, looking through paperwork
that you probably just don't have anymore. That's
is
the thing.
So expensive, and statements. So in some cases, people will try and rely on oral statements that have been made that this will be your home. How do you prove that? And then you're looking at both parties giving evidence, and it's just a very
expensive
and unpleasant experience for everybody, which can be avoided with a cohabitation
proper
agreement
planning
and a declaration of trust.
And again, it comes back to what we've discussed in previous episodes of a lack of education, of people not realising that is the situation that they will find themselves in 10, 15, 20 years' time if they haven't properly set out their intentions at the outset. And it can have devastating consequences for people. And
especially when there are children, young children involved, it's really, really difficult.
So come and see us for your cohabitation and prenuptial agreements.
Just give us plenty of time for your prenups. Thank you, and see you next time.